Intuition is this super cool superpower we all have. But sometimes it gets drowned out by fear. When we're living in a place of loss or grief or divisiveness, like especially heartbreak or loss of a loved one, it creates walls instead of boundaries around our heart and around our intuitive power. And sometimes it gets really hard to tell the difference, right, between intuition and fear. And I wanted to talk about that a little and give you this really cool story from my life. So the difference between intuition and fear is intuition will nudge, it will whisper. It's like this inner knowing. Sometimes it comes across as a clear message for me in creativity and other things, but often it's just like this underlying inner knowing that I should be doing this, or something is bad for me, or I should be going after a dream, a different type of relationship, or something like that. Fear, on the other hand, shouts. It comes from the mind, not the heart, and it worries, it nags. It's like this inner anxiety and this no, don't do that kind of response to things. And it's an immediate reflex to guard. And it's there for a reason. It's when it's used the right way for fight or flight, when a tiger's chasing you or you're abusive relationship, or there's a natural disaster or some other thing that that requires immediate action to get away from, or sometimes steps of action to get away from. Not everything's super easy to escape from, but that's what it's meant for. It's not a place to live in. Living there, we will live small. We will put safety and security as our first and only priority, and that always limits us to this playing it safe, stagnant, numb kind of life. And I don't want that for anybody. I don't want anyone to be stuck where I was when I felt so lost and broken. And there was a time I was, really lost, and I lost that intuitive power that had guided me my whole life, had guided every great thing in my life. And I was like, where is it? Is this fear? Is this intuition? It was fear. I could not find intuition for a while. And I found a range of modalities. There was no one simple thing, because we're so complex as human beings. There's no one simple thing that's going to be oh, let's unlock that and get back to it. That's what we all try to do with distractions and pleasure and medication. Doesn't really work in the long run. It's just a Band-Aid. So I started with talk therapy, like most people do, and it can be super helpful to get things off your chest, to think through your own wacky thought process sometimes, but it's very linear. It can't get into the subconscious mind, which controls 95% of our decisions and behavior. So to get deep into ourself and really heal from the inside out, and really not just heal, but empower ourselves to live this full life and all we can be and all we want to be, right? We all want to live in that place. It's not easy. But one of those things that I used was my art and my creativity. And you don't need to be an artist. We are all born with this creative, intuitive power. And we just sort of let it go as we get older. And we have to live in this boring reality. We don't have to live there. We can self-express and embrace all this wonderful, intuitive power and all kinds of other powers that are deep inside of us. So the important thing, that art can do for us, it can get us right out of our heads and into our hearts if we just self-express, and we're not trying to create a portrait or a landscape or learn a technique, right? We can just doodle, we can just play. That's where intuitive power is really fueled from, this sense of play and wonder and dreams. So I used art, I used yoga, meditation, breath work, all super powerful, tantra, and I healed myself. And one of the first clues that I was healing and my intuitive power was reactivated was super dramatic. So I was in a yoga class. I wasn't teaching this one. It was the end of the class, and I was having, the teacher was rubbing lavender oil on my third eye. And this was early in my journey. So, I wasn't super knowledgeable of the chakras and everything at that point. But all of a sudden, my third eye started buzzing like a bee or a wasp was on it. And it wasn't like, is there a tingling there? Something feels funny. It was like, is there a wasp on my forehead? Because this is crazy. Like, it was physical sensation. And my third eye blasted wide open. And my intuitive power came back. And it kept leading me into all these different practices like breath work and Tantra. And it totally changed my perspective. It's always guided me to what's right for me. And I was able to follow it again right into my own special path of healing, the ways that would work for me. Wouldn't necessarily work for everyone else, right? But by blending all these things, we can find our own way. And that's what I love to offer to the students in my workshops. So instead of, when we feel lost or broken, instead of trying to protect our hearts with these unbreakable walls, we need to think about it like honoring our hearts and creating healthy boundaries, which I'll go into another time. But I want to show you how accurate intuition could be. I'm sure you've had your own experiences, but this one is like against scientific data, which I think is super cool. So intuition, is higher than any outside authority. It's going to guide you better than politics, than your family, than your partner, than your career goals, your church, or any other higher authority. Like, your inner authority will always be right for you. It will never lead you wrong when you can tell the difference between it and fear. So here's my cool example. When I was pregnant with my daughter, because of my age, and I was super petite, I didn't gain a whole ton of weight, but for some reason, my OBGYN thought I was going to have this huge baby, over 10 pounds, really wanted me to have a C-section. And I was determined I was going to have a natural birth. I did schedule a C-section because in the back of my mind, it's like, fear. What if he's right? He's the expert. But I sort of knew, like, it probably wouldn't happen. So I scheduled it just to, like, my plan B, knowing that, I'm going to have a natural birth. And, so I did have this fear, though, of what might go wrong. So I started really researching this subject. And I found a study that said, that compared the difference between the OBGYN's estimate of birth weight versus the ultrasound tech's estimate versus the mother's intuitive guess. And the mother's guess was so much more accurate. I don't remember the numbers, but I remember being like, whoa. So I just threw a number out, 8 pounds, 3 ounces. And I was still a little skeptical inside. I mean, I didn't give that any thought. I just threw it out in a second after reading this study. And my baby was born naturally 3 days before the C-section was scheduled. And the coolest thing is, that OBGYN said over 10 pounds. Ultrasound tech said 9.5 pounds. I said 8.8 pounds, 3 ounces. My baby was 8 pounds, 2.7 ounces. I was so much more accurate. So I wanted to be back in that place in my heart where, like, I could access that power. How incredible, right? Like, I'm still blown away by that story. And I hope you think it's as cool as I do. But to open to our intuition, we really need to, try different things. And that's why I open my workshops to everyone. And it's called the HeARTwoken Way. So that's like a family of workshops. Right now, they're just locally held. I'm soon putting online courses together, and I'll be offering a free one coming up soon. It's called the Free Your Heart mini course. And it has a meditation in it that's super great for your heart and opening up your intuition. In fact, it helped heal me from PTSD, or at least enable me to deal with my PTSD. And it includes a workbook and also a little art project to really pull you out of your head into your heart and help activate that intuitive power that you have to make the most of your life. So with that, you can let go of all this mind chatter and all these to-do lists, at least for a short amount of time, and put them in balance with the rest of what's going on in your life, and embrace the power of your intuitive heart. So keep your eyes peeled. I'll be talking more about all these, things that activate in my workshops, and how that can really help you in your, creative expression and in building the life you want and escaping from, is there more? Yeah, there's more. And you can find it in my workshops and deep inside yourself.